From Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. A beautiful, nice, crisp morning.
Absolutely. You're not going to say that tomorrow morning, though. It's supposed to rain all day long.
Okay.
So are you?
We'll be ready. Get rain jackets out. Yeah.
Are you a puddle jumper? Do you just go out and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go jump.
You know, if we're doing that today and that's what we're going to do today, then sure. I mean, I like to hike, so I'm used to jumping in puddles and in water and rivers and trying not to, go over our neck.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you coming in. Let's talk about the topic today, which is ways to help with teen driving and safety there. We talked a little bit about this, and that conversation comes up when we're back to school. We chat about that, but this kind of conversation continues. It needs to continue, right?
Yeah, everybody has a different birthday. I mean, if there's 365 days, so as kids start to turn 14 years and 8 months, where they can start the process of getting their driver's license, 16, 18. There's different elements of this, driving license that the kids get. So every day, somebody's turning 16 in Michigan, and probably several hundred. So if not thousands. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing of teen safety, teen driving.
Do you think it's harder or easier for teens to get their license these days, or at least be out there driving? What's your thoughts about today's teen versus, let's say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I would say with the graduated licenses that are out there, there's more steps. I would say definitely on the positive side, it's helping give students more experience behind the wheel before they're completely let go. So, we were actually doing that at State Farm in terms of tracking, having students track some driving and then put the report down and then provide a discount. So we were trying to do that before actually in Michigan the graduated laws even came out. So yeah, definitely State Farm from safety standpoint, good neighbors believe for sure, there's definitely a process. It's harder today than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago for sure.
Do you think that teens recognize that at all or not?
No, I don't think so. It becomes almost like the standard. It's kind of like, especially if they have older siblings or cousins or friends, they've heard about the process, what they've got to go through, and it becomes who they are, right? I mean, it's just normal, and we don't know any different. So I think the parents may go, man alive, we got to do this and that and the other thing compared to what they had to do, but it is for good reasons. The statistics are definitely showing that this process is much, much safer for kids to take the time, students to get their license and work through the process.
We're talking with Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance this morning. Teen driving safety. Let's talk about some of these tips that we want to pass on. You'd highlighted a little bit of the first one, to ensure compliance with graduated driver's license laws. And I believe, and again, I'm dated at this point too, is that not driving without the parent or a licensed adult, right, for a certain period of time, not driving at past a certain point at night, and I'm sure there's a few others that come along with that.
Yeah, I don't have all the laws memorized, but I definitely know that you have to get from segment 1 to 2 and be 16, and there's there's hours of classroom, hours of driving, again, like you said, with an adult that are required, and that there's definitely a process to go from level 1, 2, and then to 3.
Yeah, and the next one that we want to talk about, the restricted the night driving. From an insurance standpoint, do you see statistics at all of teens having more issues when it's when it's not clear as day outside, and you do have that night those night issues that you can't see that vehicle or that deer or those other things that cross the street?
It definitely, there is an increase when it's dark. We have more claims, so statistics show that. There's actually different times of the day where it's better. Obviously, non-rush hour for most claims, especially even with teenagers, but kind of getting into the rush hour. But then the next big one is at night, and again, without experience. I mean, I keep using that word, but there's a lot of reality and facts to once you've driven 5,000 miles, 100,000 miles, 1,000,000 miles. And I kind of figure at this stage, 40 years later, which is literally 40 years later, I've probably driven over 2 million miles in my lifetime.
Wow.
So, that experience does matter for teens, and helping them get it, and parents that are listening and watching, definitely help with those skills now, because they just don't know. You think they know, or they've heard it, but maybe they weren't completely paying attention in class, or they didn't do that with the instructor, but they're with you. Help them through that and explain the reason, what they're doing that needs to be corrected. And I get that parent, student relationship, child relationship, but help instruct them, tell them the why. Like, here's what I've seen. I've actually experienced this, or I know somebody that had that, and this is what happened. And I think that helps the student learn and get that experience.
Here's a thought. While you were saying that, I was thinking in the back of my mind, do you think parents, let's say that they're going on a long road trip, or there's just something different than their normal back and forth to school or the store driving. Do you think parents should empower their child to try that? Obviously, it's going to be dependent on how many miles I would assume that they have under their belt a little bit there. But do you think it's better for the parent to get behind the wheel, or kind of empower that child to do that and give them that experience? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's varied. I think it's individual. A lot of the parents that would be listening would say, even within their own family, 2, 3, 4 kids, 5 kids, they know, certain ones of their children just have better kind of natural reaction time and eye, hand, foot coordination, depth perception. This is really kind of where you need to know your student in this space, driving this 2,000-pound metal thing down the road, sometimes 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, just to realize that, give them that experience. If you think they're ready, by all means, and we've had kids where we've gone on a trip. Let's just say we were going to Florida, and, they were a certain segment of the highway they're driving, and, allowing them to get that highway long distance experience. And at some point, again, kind of from a permission standpoint, when they're ready, is, they're maybe they're 17 and you're like, we'd really like to go to Muskegon. Okay. That's fine. Just be really careful with the car. You're doing great. So you just need to be back at this time. I want you back before dark, but sure, go ahead. You're ready to go ahead and take that trip.
And we're talking about teen driving with Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance this morning. Keep a safe distance when you're following a vehicle. Limit teen passengers, those distractions. We actually see and hear a lot of commercials about that this day and age. That distraction, it I don't know what the statistics are, but it's seconds that if you're distracted, that you can be in an accident. Is that right?
Yeah, there's not much reaction time when you're distracted, and there's so many different distractions, and I think it's just accentuated again using that E word, that experience word. But if you think about it, I've literally seen people with an electric razor in their hand. A remote curling iron, reading the newspaper. All sorts of just wild distractions.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Now, I will say that more and more we see that less now.
Yes.
At least especially with the new law that's in place there. You share the car to prevent speeding. I think this is a very important one, which is kind of be that example for your child that's going to be driving. If you're speeding and if you're road raging out there and all of that stuff, they're going to do the same thing, aren't they?
Absolutely. You definitely learn by what you watch, and that's probably the biggest example of what maybe to do or to try, and not knowing better. So what you do and show example, and I personally had those experiences with just my dad getting upset, and sure enough, it passed on. So road rage is absolutely just no good. There's a no-win solution here, because only something bad can happen. Somebody's going to get hurt. So it literally does not help.
Let's transition as we get closer to wrapping up this morning about the benefits of the parents having that teen driver on their policy. I think that's we hear that over and over again that there is a benefit to that. I don't think there's any, and you tell me if I'm wrong, benefit to that teen driver having their own separate policy away from their parents, right?
The only benefit for the kids, really, and students, is just that flexibility that parents sometimes need with their jobs to allow, their student to get to and from practice, whether that's band or any kind of extracurricular sport. So that flexibility. But in terms of insurance expense, unequivocally, being on the same car policy with the parents is the least expensive in most cases, for sure.
Okay. And how long do you keep them on that policy? What is that normal practice there?
Being a resident relative, which is a fancy words for, up and down. So in other words, children, parents, brothers, siblings, if they're living with you, resident relatives, meaning, they've got their license address at your home, they're getting, mail sent to you, they're legally in your home, then they can stay on indefinitely. We usually get to the point where maybe before they move out that's the time is to get them their own insurance after, they're getting their own place, perhaps after college or after technical school, and they're like, okay, now they're officially out. It's time to move them on and help them with their own insurance.
Have you ever observed anybody who has had their kids on their policy basically their whole life? Does that happen?
I would say there's times where there's perhaps even multiple homes on the same property, which we'll see that in the rural area where they actually didn't even separate the deed in terms of the parcel, and they're on the property with a separate living, structure on the same property. Okay. And they literally share cars, sometimes even buy them together. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty unique situation, though, Chris, to be honest, that you see that. Because as soon as it's got its own parcel, as soon as even if you bought property or you gave your kids, a couple of acres to build on and set a new parcel for that property, they've got to get their own insurance, for that new place that they just built or moved into.
All right, last couple questions here comes to mind when it comes to teen driving. Obviously, you see statistics that happen. What do you think the most cause of accidents, or what you see from a policy standpoint with teen drivers? What are they doing the most and to cause accidents?
Yeah, I would say the majority, and I can even think of the 4 little accidents that my 3 kids had, but a lot of times where it's not, speeding, flying down the road. Typically, it's in a parking lot, or it's backing up, or it's maybe passing along somebody, where it's in tight quarters, and even in a driveway. It's amazing how many accidents for teens happen in driveways, or they're going to visit their friend and they're unfamiliar with the surrounding and they hit this little tree, or they back into the mailbox. That's more common, but the challenge is, all the parents listening know, is like, okay, you hit the quarter panel and the back bumper. That's about $4,000 if we have to get a new camera for that bumper. Mm-hmm. And so, having that claim, again, they backed into it. It's an at-fault claim. If you have full coverage on a nicer, newer car, that's just a hard thing to swallow. Mm-hmm. Deciding, do we file the claim or not? Because then it affects the student's driving record and the premium on your policy. So those are super tough decisions to make, but we help people get through them the best we can, talk it through, and just try to, help them, look at their choices in terms of, what they can do to help repair their car and affect them as least as possible. All
right. One final question I have, I'm curious about, is that age where you don't get as penalized as a teen driver or young adult. Where is that land?
Well, I think it deals with the frontal lobe, lobe or whatever, where it's fully developed. And so it's age 25 is that age where, we really see the premium start to, to drop there.
Okay.
So 16 to 25. And a lot of people go, well, what is the deal with that? Well, it's a statistic where claims happen between 16 and 25 that are significantly higher than 25 to 75 years old. So it's a matter of statistics. And each year it keeps coming down. It becomes less expensive, and then it flattens out from an age perspective at about 25.
All right. Good to know there. Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance between Ludington and Scottville. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, if they have a teen driver or if they want a policy or have a question in general, how do they do that?
Yeah, well, you can reach us where you can walk right in. I have my staff there 9 to 5. We're a half a mile east of Meyer on US 10 in Ludington. We'd love to have you come by, or just, if you would, give us a call today. You can reach us at 231-757-3115.
All right. Sounds good. Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. If you missed this segment, you can watch it in its entirety on our Facebook pages, either WMOM or Hot Country Hits, as well as our YouTube channel. Erin, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely.